as a society, we continue to live longer. All right. Now there's a few indicators that are going, we better be careful, but we continue to live longer. So there's going to be no shortage of older adults who want to live with dignity and independence on their own terms. The old, oh, I live this long, then I go to a nursing home. I've never been in any barbecue, church gathering, or fundraiser where people goes, yeah, I'm planning for my years in the home. Okay, people don't want to go to a nursing home, and so what are the models? How are the ways we can support each other as we live independently?
When I started taking gerontology courses, sometimes I was one of two or three in the classroom. And what I was thinking is, has anyone looked at demography or a book called The Age Wave to see what's going to happen in our country? So it was kind of slow coming to see and have people understand that all of us are living longer, which is a great opportunity. And how are we going to have the resources that we need to be able to age well and age in our own homes and our communities as we would want?
I believe we as a society have a major challenge and opportunity ahead of us in the fact that our ability to help people live longer changes the dynamics of our societal institutions quite dramatically. And our institutions to support people as they live longer are antiquated. They've been designed based on our previous lifespans and health spans, which is typically around, retiring in your 60s, going on a cruise, playing some golf, moving to a community, and dying at 70 to 80. But so many more people now are living longer, and they're healthier into their 60s, 70s, and 80s, 90s even. We don't have the institutions to support them. We particularly don't have the systems to support people who don't want to move out from where they're living into a congregant living setting with other older people entirely. The traditional nursing home or senior living community is not what 95% of people want or can afford. Even if they wanted it, they couldn't afford it. So we have a problem. We have a lot more people aging in their homes and their communities, and we don't have systems in place to support them. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100-year-olds are not what they were 25 years ago, or let alone 50 years ago. And not that much has changed in our society in the way we support them.
I do believe, especially among aging professionals, there is an assumption and there's an assumption that because Florida has the demographics of older adults, they have the resources to help those older adults. And every year, AARP does a scorecard for those kinds of support services. And Florida is moving down to the very bottom. And I think the last scorecard was number 47. So what that means, if you want to age in community, if you want to have home health services and food and transportation and socialization and everything else available, it is not going to, you cannot depend on the state to provide it. And I think sometimes families think, well, my mom and dad are in Florida, so if they need this or that, it's just a phone call. That is not the case. So again, I think what villages are trying to do in terms of forming neighborhoods, being collaborative with the community, using the resources that are in the community, and together advocating for what older adults need at every level of the government, county, state, and the federal level. So I think UPLIFT has a great opportunity to be very impactful to help everyone age in place across the states.
Clearly, I knew that there are a lot of older adults in Florida, but I did not have an understanding that their needs weren't being met, because I see so many, aging or independent living facilities or nursing homes and whatnot. So I just assumed that this is, I've always heard this is where people go to retire and whatnot. So I thought, they're coming here because something is working. Everything is working perfectly to some extent for them. But that's not always true. I didn't know that, of course, maybe because that's not my demographic or I'm not there yet. But there are definitely needs and gaps and inequalities that exist in the aging landscape that UPLIFT can help support what's working and create new innovative ways of filling in the gaps that do exist, and just supporting the creation and development of villages which are really needed and are really impactful where they're at and where they're working.
Most people, and I am one of those, moved to Florida without having any family here. And we moved here, we both went to work. So we didn't, my husband and I didn't retire right away. We kept working, but our family's not here. And I found that with my role at Jewish Family Children's Services, the phone calls that I would get, that people would have all kinds of problems and or a crisis, which is going to happen. And they had no family. And so they looked to the community to be there for them. And that's one of the things that UPLIFT is forming. So the neighbors within your community become your family. Your faith-based organization becomes your family. Your social connections, either be your bridge club or your golf group or your mahjong club becomes your family. I think that living in Sarasota, which still is the oldest large county in the United States, and we also have a very high percentage of people over the age of 85, as does Charlotte County and Lee County. And, what we would we would explain when we would ever have a grant or ask people for funding is we are aging sooner and quicker than anyone else. So whatever is going to happen with older adults is going to happen here first. So let us try out new ideas. Let us try new concepts.
Every agency has their limit. So I find that there is an age group that kind of falls through the cracks, that maybe 25 to 55, 59 range, that just kind of falls through the cracks. They don't meet the needs of inquiring services from certain organizations that you just know they would benefit from, but they just haven't reached those requirements yet to qualify. So it's that part is frustrating.
I was surprised when I moved here. I moved to Florida actually 32 years ago, first in Miami for 3 years and then here in Orlando. And had been in the aging field, and I was surprised Florida was as far behind in terms of services as it was. And it continues that way. ARP does it's really about long-term care, but like home and community-based long-term care, they do like a scorecard of all the states. And Florida ranked like 47th or something. I see there'd be a lot of people who could use this being part of the village thing to thrive in community.
I was a caregiver. Well, I'm still a caregiver, but I was like a heavy duty family caregiver for like 10 years. And to be honest, I worked at the Agency for Healthcare Administration during that 10 years. And the combination of watching so many of my loved ones decline in health, and not having the resources that I needed, trying to juggle my family, my immediate family, with being the primary caregiver to 3 aging family members, and then watching our, state infrastructure just not meeting the needs that it could over and over again. That was really, really challenging. And then in the summer of 2021, both my mom and my grandfather died a month apart. And I was like, wasn't a full-time caregiver anymore. and I was still working for the state, and I was just like, I gotta figure out something a little bit more immediate to do with my life that's gonna help me feel like I'm contributing a little bit more directly. Because before I was like overseeing a lot of statewide initiatives, and that was great. As I did feel like I was doing some good things, but I felt like I was working within some systems that were just not serving the populations that I really wanted to be serving. And the continual decision to opt out of national programs is a huge disservice to so many people across the age spectrum, but certainly our aging populations, and especially our aging populations that are financially insecure and of color. It's just wildly inequitable. And to even, so like you have to have the resources to understand like what waiting lists you have to get onto for any of the resources that are provided by the state, which even that hurdle is a huge challenge. But then once you get on them, most people just die on the waiting list. And that's it. I mean, that's it. I was so privileged to have the ability to, I mean, like my grandmother, she had 3 grandchildren in town and a daughter and a son-in-law, and had a house paid off and had $200,000 of cash in the bank. Okay. She had a stroke when she was 87. We tried so hard to keep her in her home. We could not do it. All of us. We were all committed to her. We could not keep her in her home because it was just too hard and there weren't enough resources. I moved in with her. Couldn't do it. It was I didn't know what to do. How do you, what do you do? I moved her into a assisted living facility, and we had to pay out all of her money before the state would help with anything. There was no assistance. We had to sell her house. You have to deplete everything to get anything, which, it's like you want to be like, okay, so this is like, okay, this like privileged person was able to like do all of that. That's great, But so then she's like stuck in an assisted living facility and like, if we hadn't had the resources to then, because we had to get rid of all of her money so that she would have a place in the assisted living facility, right? So then we had to then pay for all of the other things that she needed, because it's not just the, $5,000 a month. She ended up living for like another 7 years. She went through all her resources, and it's just like, there's no understanding that we are all in this. We are all going to die. And don't we want to support each other? And like, that's what the Village movement has to offer, is supporting each other, and in a very immediate, connected, localized way. Each of us at some point in our life is going to be passionate about aging, and it's just a matter of how long you have an opportunity to be passionate about aging, right? And how much power you have during that time.